about God and my belief systems about what's the right religion and all these things. Once I give up all of that, and I'm not saying you have to give up all the religion, but you need to give up the unloving belief systems. And that's going to be emotional. It's going to take some emotional work. You know, you can't just do it in your head. You're going to have to change it in your heart somehow. And that's going to be releasing the beliefs that you have that are out of harmony with love, so that you can accept the beliefs that are in harmony with love. Once a lot of people decide to do that on the planet, and then a movement slowly grows where that occurs, then you'll see huge changes on the planet, I believe. And I believe huge changes are possible on the planet. And the reason why myself and Mary are here again is because we believe the planet's ripe for that kind of change. But it can't be forced upon people. It has to come from within them. Yeah.
Now you mentioned a movement of love, so a love movement kind of reminds me of like the 60s, I would say. So would you equate this new movement sort of to the hippies and...
No, the hippie movement was very unloving. It firstly had a lot of sexual unloving things occurring. It was often addicted to drugs, which was also quite unloving to the individual. And in addition, it was more of a rebellion against authority. And rebellion against authority is not a love towards authority. So you know, I cannot define the 60s as a loving movement that occurred. Now, sure, certain things changed in the 60s that were more loving. You know, there were more countries that accepted women as equals to men, although you'd have to ask how well that's really taken on, considering even in the most developed of Western countries, for most of them, women are still paid less than men. So, you know, you'd have to consider whether some of these movements have had a really long-lasting effect yet on the planet. But there certainly were changes that were positive in that regard. You know, a good change was that there's far less sexual control over women. So that is a good change. A negative change is that the less sexual control resulted in a bit of a backlash where women became more promiscuous, and I don't think that was a very good change. So I feel there were positive changes and negative changes, as there are in almost every generation. But if we asked ourselves, if this generation asked itself, how are we going to become more loving, then I'm sure we can see that there'd be a much more positive change. And particularly if we were willing to address within our hearts the reason why we're unloving. You see, many people in the 60s, for example, thought the war in Vietnam was in error.